This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And on this week's episode, before we check out some of the guns in the upcoming Modern Warfare 3, we're taking a look at Modern Warfare 3. Wait a second.
You can, of course, reload by running the charging handle like that. It's not recommended by H&K themselves. The HK slap originated with them.
If you want to see more of Jonathan reacting to the various arsenals of Call of Duty, make sure to subscribe, check out the previous episodes, and be sure to let us know in the comments what the games or guns you'd like to see on the show. Right, over to Jonathan and the guns of 2011's Modern Warfare 3.
Right, so this would appear to be an M249, but with a modernised handguard. But actually, in the game, it is described as the Mark 46. And although we don't have an M249, we do have paraminimes, we do have a Mark 46, which I'm very proud of. Relatively recent acquisition. This is a bona fide US machine gun, 5.56mm, Mark 46 mod, and then the zero's been crossed out and a 1 has been added. So this is a Mark 46 mod 1. Very, very pleased to have got hold of this for the collection. Now, ours actually doesn't have an upper handguard. I'm pretty sure I've seen 46s that do. It has a short fluted barrel. I don't believe the paraminimi or the 249 certainly has a fluted barrel. Lightweight was part of the remit for the US Navy Mark 46. Critical or major difference. Well, first of all, the Mark 46, or the ordinary version of it, has the fixed buttstock, not the para buttstock, but you know, that's configurable. What it lacks to reduce weight again is the magazine feed of the 249. So the US M249 was designed to be able to accept AR-15 magazines in a port, an angled port below the belt feed. Saw a recent video from Iraq where some tribal fighters were using a 249 and they were feeding it off the belt, and then they jammed in a magazine and managed to get that to work without stoppages. That is a notoriously unreliable aspect of the design, so it made sense to bin that for the lighter weight sort of short barrel variant that is the Mark 46. So this is a true Mark 46. What it appears the Call of Duty developers have done is take whatever 249 model they had available and put on a Mark 46 style handguard and call it a Mark 46. I'm sure there are other minor differences that I'm not picking up on because I don't have a 249 spec gun to compare it to, and I don't want to do it with a normal Minimi or a British Minimi in case they're not relevant. There we are, a very contemporary addition to the Royal Armouries collection, and one that is mirrored in this game, albeit it isn't quite right. Of course, when Modern Warfare 3 came out, this was the latest thing. Well, the 46 was the latest thing. Although I sometimes complain about running and gunning in games with LMGs. If you're going to do it with anything, a lightened Minimi with a short barrel does make some sense. There's always been a niche for a 5.56 high rate of fire belt-fed gun like the old Stoner 63 that was used in Vietnam by the SEALs. Great for laying ambushes or breaking contact, but still being light and portable and short. We seem to have a rail on our rail. Am I wrong?
It does look it, doesn't it? Because it's not the rail on the handguard isn't flush with the rail on the receiver.
No, that's quite strange.
It looks like there's a riser on it.
Yeah, so there's the ARMS swan sleeve, it's called, and it's for a very specific sighting arrangement that requires a little bit more elevation. I think that's a product of its time. Those were somewhat popular around the time that Modern Warfare, well, 10, 15 years ago, perhaps. I don't know that anyone's using them now. It's a little bit of extra weight for not much benefit. And here it's no benefit at all because it's literally just, we're running iron sights. So it doesn't matter what that is doing. But hey, it shows that they were looking at the AR culture, as it were, that was around at the time. Same goes for that great big charging handle latch. So your standard AR latch, ever since they changed from the triangular shaped charging handle, has that latch. There was a fashion for a while for great big easily operable ones like that yellow painted latch there. Those have gone out of fashion from what I've seen, but it's funny that COD carried them over to the future set installments in the series, whereas I don't think they are being much used now. So initially I thought we were looking at a riser mount of some kind clamped to the actual rail on top of the receiver, but the side view reveals it's just a weirdly tall upper receiver. So it should only emerge or protrude, I suppose, this much further than the bump on the receiver here. But on the game model, it's all the way up here. It does look like it's somehow a riser mount clamped over, but the actual profile of it doesn't look right for that. So it's almost like they used an M4 or an AR with a riser mount fitted as reference, but didn't quite stick the landing on implementing it, would be my guess, because we have what looks like a latch on the left-hand side that would allow you to clamp on, something like the arms riser thing. Very important for more precision optics, certainly, to get it at the right level for your eye. Otherwise, it's an M4. So M16A4, big brother of the M4, of course. 3-round burst, but wow, it seems to have increased rate of fire since Modern Warfare 1. That seems excessively high for a rifle-length gas system. Like maybe an XM177 might run that fast, but I don't think an A4 would. And we're running the magazines with a mag pull loop on the base, which was something that used to be done with tape and paracord as an easy way to rip out a magazine from a chest rig or something and then shove it in. Somewhat out of favor now, but some people do still use them. It shouldn't be any larger than that, but it's huge. It's much wider than the rear sight should be, and then the hole is also much bigger than it should be. That's to give the player the field of view that they think you should have. It's also sticking proud of the sight protectors as well. Yes, well, you see, this is the difference between those of us who study guns and play games and people who actually have to use them. Because if you have a legitimate use for an MP5 these days, you absolutely do need somewhere to attach different accessories to the front. So sadly, I don't mind it when it has the claw mount and an optic on it, because that's kind of as the designers intended. But the Picatinny rail mount being sort of semi-permanently on there irks me as well. This is the classic look. So I've configured this as an MP5A2. It has the same trigger pack on it as in the game. Now, something you'll notice is that the selector is permanently halfway between semi and auto. And out of interest, I just tested that to see what happens. And if you operate this in that halfway house position, it's on semi. Seems sensible for safety reasons. If you nudge it a little higher and operate it, pulling the trigger causes it to rotate to automatic. So you definitely don't want to do what our man here has done and not positively leave it in semi, because you could find yourself inadvertently pushing it up to automatic. And although this is very controllable on automatic, you don't want to be accidentally firing automatic ever, basically. What can I say about the MP5? It hasn't been said before, including by me. It is an absolute classic of the genre. We might prefer sliding stock for that die-hard and Predator look, but for actual practical use, this solid A2 stock was basically unbeatable. And it's still a very short overall length. It's great. Something I did use a fair bit in Modern Warfare games. Well, I've spotted something, but I don't know that we have a more modern solid stock to check this. So the interface of the buttstock with the actual weapon is very kind of curvy on the original A2 stock. As shown here, it's really very squared off and faceted. So I don't know if that's an A2 solid stock pattern that I've not had my hands on, or if it's a mistake in the modeling. I'd be a bit surprised, because there's plenty of reference, even if you use airsoft, for an A2 buttstock. So I think that might be a mistake. Obviously our markings aren't going to be faithful. Call of Duty's always been very assiduous with its legally different markings. But beyond that, it's a solid MP5 rate of fire. I'm not seeing that slap. The big oversight for me is not so much the modeling or the texturing or the rate of fire or any of that. It's the fact that there ain't no slap. And that's very disappointing because it's not the whole thing about the MP5, but it's such an iconic thing. Really ought to have had the HK slap in there in one form or another. You can, of course, reload by running the charging handle like that. It's not recommended by H&K themselves. The HK slap originated with them. And you can fight me on that. This is, of course, HK's attempt. Well, they had two guns to attempt to replace the MP5. The MP5 was so good they had to design two new guns to replace it, and they still didn't manage it. Now, they're both decent guns. The MP7 is very good in its niche. This was supposed to be the more general workhorse SMG. It just hasn't had that much take up. There are some police forces, security forces around the world that use it. It's just not as well liked. Now, part of that is to do with the pistol caliber cartridges falling out of favor, partly to do with the runaway success of the MP5 and the reputation of it. There's nothing mechanically really wrong with the UMP, but somehow it just doesn't fit as well. It doesn't fit me as well anyway. It's a well done model for this time period. Very well done. You can see that it's made of polymer, I think. Don't have a UMP 45. We do have a UMP 9mm. It's the same gun with a different angle and profile of mag well on the lower receiver. In fact, you can rebarrel, rebolt, and relower. So basically the whole gun. You can essentially rebuild an upper, a UMP upper. You'll notice it is marked UMP, not UMP 45. So there is some commonality there. The big giveaway is that curvature on the magazine. So the 45 cartridge is more straight-sided and allows a straight magazine. Although the initial MP5 magazines were straight as well. I mean, the buttstock is superior to the MP5. It's essentially solid, and then you press a catch and it folds up for storage or very tight spaces or whatever. You can even operate the weapon with the buttstock closed because there's a big enough hole in the stock there. So, and it has a bolt hold open too. So on paper, this is superior to the MP5, but I don't think you'll find anyone that actually thinks that it is. Something I never noticed before, but so this is the Chinese Type 97 bullpup military rifle, 5.8mm. That's their own proprietary cartridge. I never noticed before that it has Chinese characters for some reason on the back of the carry handle there. I think that reason is to emphasize how Chinese it is. You won't find that on the issue rifles.
Apparently it's Chinese for invincible.
Is that right? Well, it wasn't, because it's been replaced by, or being replaced by, a conventional layout rifle as we speak. So not a huge service life. Healthy, but not as long as you might have expected for what's supposed to be like a space age rifle. Not much more I can say about this. We don't have one of these in the collection. About the best we could probably do is to try to source one via Canada, where the civilian version in 5.56 is available. But we would want the Chinese military variant in theory. But it is pretty much unobtainium outside of China, so in its military form. So I can't remember the plot of Modern Warfare 3 well enough, but I'm not sure it entirely makes sense here. Good for variety reasons, of course, to see something from the other side of the planet, from the reference point of the US forces, which is basically what Modern Warfare is about, with a fairly healthy presence from the British SAS, of course, or a highly fictionalized version of them. I don't know how much data they got their hands on to represent this rifle. There's relatively little was available in 2010 when this would have been developed to get this right. So interested to hear from anyone that has access. I know a couple of people that do. Whether they watch these videos, I don't know.
Care package on the way.
It's our old friend, the VZ61 Skorpion. And this one is looking pretty similar. with its shiny black pistol grip rather than the earlier type. That's all that's changed, really. The classic pop open pseudo buttstock that's really not great, but it's better than nothing. Looking fine so far, except for cocking. So it's showing the operator doing this, which can't do. I can get the bolt partway back, but then it slips. And this is designed for an overhand grip. These sort of cocking ears here, they're very low profile. They're designed not to snag as you draw this thing out of your kit. So to pull this off in reality, you have to reach over the gun, grasp both of these cocking ears or buttons, pull to the rear, and let it go. It works just fine that way. It doesn't work unless it's already cocked, in which case I can replicate just what he's doing there. But to actually overcome the resistance of cocking the thing, you really have to do the proper thing. Otherwise, it's looking pretty good, except for one massive oversight. I've only just realized, having spent hundreds of hours playing this back in the day, it's spitting cases out of the right-hand side. See if you can spot the ejection port on the right-hand side. You can't, because there isn't one. It's on the top. And this, a bit like the Luger, it's kind of notorious for ejecting cases straight up in the air and landing in your hair, at least landing in my hair. So, a weird oversight based presumably on them not taking this one to the range at this point in development. Yeah, very strange. L118A. That's kind of like the only designation like that I can think of is the M41A, which is a wholly fictional rifle from the world of Aliens. The whole A1, A2, A3 thing is implemented differently in different countries, but it's essentially the same idea. It's an advancement in incremental improvement over time. In the British system, we start at A1 and go up from there. In the American system, we start at nothing, and then you add an A1 and A2, so on and so forth. So this should be L118A1, and this is an L118A1. Well, kind of. This is the trials configuration of what was introduced as that rifle, with a sizable looking suppressor on it as well. The only difference I'm aware of, and I've never seen an in-service L118A1, is markings, actual L1 service markings, NSN, etc. This is just marked, it has a serial number AW for Arctic Warfare. The only difference I'm aware of is the barrel. So this is a super heavy, certainly for my lack of upper body strength, super heavy barrel, great for precision. But the service weapon, if I remember rightly, has a fluted barrel. So they've removed some steel and cut down a little bit of weight off that barrel. I'm not aware of any other changes from the Trials rifle, but I'll be seeing if I can pick those up in due course and documenting them for our collection. And maybe we'll get an old L118A1 at some point, but we might have missed the boat there, because as far as I know, they're out of service. It's essentially a Guccified L96A1, still in 7.62 NATO. It's not an Arctic Warfare Magnum. It would be something like a 300 Win Mag or a 338. The current service, Accuracy International, is a 338 Lapua. So I had to look this one up. It's a quirky Uzi adjacent design from Japan called the Minabeya, and another Call of Duty exotic firearm, although less so if you're from Japan, I suppose. They just wanted something that was Uzi or Ingram-like that was a bit different, I suspect. There's no reason for this to be where it's probably a multiplayer only game. So I can't speak to the accuracy of its presentation. I will note the iron sights have a common problem, which is that the front sights being held way up. So it's like they're holding over for range by having the rear sight way down. That again, I assume, is a field of view thing, because it has the cocking handle ears that block your field of view already. So I think if they had the iron sights line up as they ought to, your field of view where you're aiming would be too small for distance. And again, this isn't a distance weapon in real life or in the game, so that might just be a mistake.
They modelled a foregrip, but in the game, it's shot one-handed.
That's a good point, Dave. Yes. So it's not like if you go dual wield, it's one-handed only. It's almost GoldenEye-esque in the fact that it's a two-handed weapon that is being fired one-handed, which is not ideal. This thing's going to be hard enough to control as it is without a buttstock. You're absolutely going to want to push-pull. Otherwise, you're relying on your wrist strength. And unless you're Arnold Schwarzenegger firing blanks with his movie guns, let's remember, it's really not feasible. This is a lightweight weapon. It's going to pivot in the hand. Very high rate of fire. So we're using two hands to reload it, obviously. But we're not then keeping that hand out there on the foregrip, which we really ought to be doing. Dipping back there into the Modern Warfare series. Those were the guns, or more guns, from Modern Warfare 3. We have Modern Warfare 3 2 coming out soon. I can't keep track, so it'll be interesting to see how the whole game is updated, and of course the guns in particular. As always, do check out the Royal Armouries website. We have recently revamped the website. From there you can find all the links to our social media platforms, how to visit our 3 sites here in the UK if you're able to do that and would like to do that. We also have our own YouTube channel you might want to check out if you haven't already. Plenty of game adjacent firearms in there, as well as some older stuff as well. But we'll see you here on the GameSpot channel next week.